And a TGIF, everyone. Welcome into the First Call podcast alongside Jeff Siegel. I'm Jeremy Plonk from First Bet and Express Bet. It was quiet last week, Mr. Siegel, on the Triple Crown Trail. We had some good stakes around the country, but no 3-year-olds to speak of. Now we've got a couple of them, and they'll be part of our focus on Louisiana Derby Day at Fairgrounds and also the big Jeff Ruby card at Turfway Park. So we've got a lot to talk about this week.
Yeah, I hope we learned something. I've been I looking at your rankings on the countdown, and there's not a lot of movement, or at least there hasn't in the last
No.
few weeks. But let's kind of spice it up a little bit. We've got some good 3-year-old racing, obviously this weekend, and then we'll continue on all the way up to the first Saturday in May, and then past that as well. But some good gambling racing today, good opportunities. I think we got some. I know that I got what I think is a good price play in the Bourbon and Oaks. We'll talk about that at
All right.
So let's get started.
You know, we don't have Sierra Leone back for Louisiana Derby. He won the Risen Star. He's going to await the Bluegrass Stakes. We don't have Encino back. He won the Battaglia Memorial at Turfway. That was only 3 weeks ago, though, so he's not running back here in the Jeff Ruby as well. So we're going to get some new faces to the winner's circle, perhaps, on those two big circuits, as 100 Kentucky Derby qualifying points are on the line towards the winners, 50 for the runner-up. So these two races this weekend could produce as many as 4 Kentucky Derby starters just by the points alone off the top, how it shakes out. Let's look at our schedule of events for our handicapping podcast each week here on First Call. We look at 8 races. For those of you watching on YouTube and on Twitter, hit that like button, share with us. Also make some comments during the course of the show. We love to hear back from you. Those of you on our traditional audio podcast channels, here are the 8 races that Jeff and I will handicap. We're going to do things a little different. We usually go track by track in our race order, but because of the new Bayou Bluegrass Pick 5 wager coming up on Saturday from Fairgrounds and Turfway, we're going to put the races in the order of the Bayou Bluegrass Pick 5. That's a $1 wager with just a 15% takeout. So good opportunity for horse players to jump into that. We will start off at Fairgrounds with the New Orleans Classic. That goes as race number 9 on the card in New Orleans. At Turfway, we'll go to the Bourbonnette Oaks next. Back to Fairgrounds for the Fairgrounds Oaks, to Turfway for the big one, the 3-year-olds and the Jeff Ruby, and then the sophomore stars shine at Fairgrounds. Final leg of the Bayou Bluegrass Pick 5 will be the Louisiana Derby. We'll get you 8 stakes. We always do. So beyond the Bluegrass Pick 5, the Bayou Bluegrass Pick 5, we've got stakes races from Laurel, Oaklawn, and Santa Anita to talk about. At Laurel, the 3-year-olds are also auditioning there in the private term stakes. Got a very interesting one we're going to show you on video. Stick around for that. At Oaklawn, the Essex Handicap, a prep towards the Oaklawn Handicap for the older horses. Big person, that one. And Santa Anita's got the San Luis Rey for long-distance runners on the grass. Tournament players, you've got a couple big shots this weekend to take a look at. You've got the $500 Santa Anita Challenge on Saturday. But if you want to play in some feeder tournaments for a lower entry fee, $40 feeders available Friday, Saturday, and Sunday at Gulfstream. Also, $40 feeders on Friday and Sunday at Santa Anita. That will bookend that $500 Santa Anita Challenge. And for the promos, the $25,000 Exactathon rolls on for the 3rd straight week. We're giving away money. It's Fairgrounds this week. The Exactathon challenges you to pick winning exactas in 6 races on the card. So there are 12 races on Saturday at Fairgrounds. Hit an exacta in 6 of the 12 races. You'll get your share of $20,000 in cash. If you pick the most exacta races correctly amongst the players, you'll get your share of an additional $5,000. How good were those bonuses last week for Tampa Bay Downs Exactathon? The winners got $238 extra in their account if you hit 6 exactas. What a bonus that paid out. And the players who had the most shared that $5,000 amongst themselves. They shared $357 apiece in their accounts for picking the most exactas. Those are players on the First Bet and Express Bet platforms who play the Exactathon promo this weekend. Be sure to do it for Fairgrounds. Look, you're going to be betting Fairgrounds anyway, right, Jeff? I mean, you might as well get involved. You might as well hit that entry button and get involved into the contest and the promotion. Make sure you register for that, because if you're playing exactas, it's free money being added back into your account.
Not only that, but I actually went and checked the weather before the show here, and it looks like it's going to be sunny and dry. If you can do that, so
wet today at Fairgrounds, but tomorrow's going to be nice conditions,
and that track will dry out. Just so long as it's not a sea of mud, which it seems like every time we handicap Fairgrounds, that's what we get. But I think we're going to be in good shape here. On the other hand, many of the races that are critical to the handicapping process were contested in the mud. So now we got to see if that form will hold or not. But other than that, good racing down there this weekend, and we've got a number of the races that we're going to look at closely. And I'm looking forward to it. Really am.
Within the first family, once again, we have the Coast to Coast Pick 5 coming up on Saturday and Sunday. Those are races from Gulfstream and Santa Anita. Here's a look at the races that will comprise Saturday, March 23rd, Coast to Coast Pick 5. At Santa Anita, we start things out in races 3, 5, and 8. Races 3, 5, and 8 just after 5 o'clock East Coast time, 2 o'clock on the West Coast. Races 3, 5, and 8 from Santa Anita will be part of the Coast to Coast Pick 5. The Gulfstream offerings will be races 9 and 11. So 3, 5, and 8 from Santa Anita, 9 and 11 from Gulfstream. Those are your Coast to Coast Pick 5 races coming up for Saturday. But as Jeff and I mentioned, we're going to talk about a new wager this week, the Bayou Bluegrass Pick 5, and that's where we'll start our handicapping from the fairgrounds on Saturday. It'll be race number 9 on the card at Fairgrounds, the New Orleans Classic, our first handicapping test in the first leg of this Coast to Coast, or the first leg of this Bayou Bluegrass Pick 5. I will mess that up at least once more on the course of the program, separating the different wager names. Jeff, when I handicapped this race, the New Orleans Classic, I was handicapping it, trying to figure out the exactathon, how I want to play exactas in this particular race. Touch Upon a Star, the 3 has just been an unbelievable Louisiana bred. Best Actor's got tremendous speed for Brad Cox. To me, it came down to those 2 horses. I don't know if they run 1-2 because they have the same kind of running style, and often horses that lock up like that, one of them's going to give way at some point. From an exacta standpoint, maybe you don't want to use both of those horses, but on the wind end, and you're looking at something like this, Bayou Bluegrass Pick 5, to me, it has to run through those 2 speed horses. One of them wins, right?
Yeah, I think so. And it's funny you bring that up because originally when I handicapped the race, I looked at Touch Upon a Star and said, okay, he's got several triple-digit buyer numbers, even though most of them are coming against Louisiana bred company. He's a front runner. He's got proven form at Fairgrounds, 4 starts, 3 wins and a second. He's won 11 out of 14. I mean, he's got everything you'd want. But at 1 1/8, which he's won at, but not against this level of competition, I wonder if he makes the lead, and then what does Best Actor do? And in watching Best Actor, he came off a long laugh. I got beaten the mind chap, but I thought that was a really good race he ran. A little bit off the bench there. He made the lead. He was hooked by two pretty decent horses, shrugged them off, opened up, got nailed late by Money Supply, but didn't really give up. I think he kind of got a little surprised there at the end. I thought he ran great, and he's going to be put in a position of sitting second. I'm pretty sure Pratt, because the speed's drawn inside, is going to allow Touch Upon a Star to go. Best Actor is going to stalk him and make the best horse win. I think it's going to be a parade. But I do think Best Actor is going to get the best of him at the end. And trying to watch the visuals and the videos, I think Best Actor can stalk. It doesn't look necessarily like he wants to do that. 10 starts, first or second, 8 out of 10. Best on the lead, but I think he's the kind of horse who'll switch off and stalk and pounce if you let him, and I think that's what's going to happen. So maybe I'm splitting hairs, but you're right about one thing. If you're playing a rolling type of exotic, I think you have to use them both somewhere. But my main push goes at 7 to 2 in the morning line to Best Actor, who came off a race on an off track that I'm not sure he really loved, but he ran on it. But I think on fast ground, I think you're going to see Best Actor really step up and run maybe a career top in this race.
Is raced wide, and Happy American on the extreme outside looks to unwind. Red Route 1, and finally Hayes Strike gets Best Actor, who leads past the quarter pole here for Fabian Pratt after 3 quarters in 1 minute 11.56 seconds. Best Actor into this final Fairgrounds furlong, as on the outside here's Money Supply, who's charging hard for Tyler Gaffalione. Then Gasoline and Red Route 1. They come past the 16th. It's Money Supply, who's taken a short lead from Best Actor. Money Supply flows to.
Like you mentioned, he wasn't giving way there, and if he would have been a little bit closer, maybe they lock up, but just a head decision there, but he wasn't backing up Best Actor. 4th in that race was Red Route 1 in the slop at 1 1/16. I think on fast ground at 1 1/8, which statistically the record shows that's his best distance. I think Red Route 1 is the closer you want to look in there to maybe get second in the exacta. And for the exactathon blog that I wrote looking at this particular race, I used the 2 logical speed horses and put Red Route 1 second underneath both of them, trying to catch the exacta that way. One of the speeds holds on and wins, but Red Route 1 is a horse who would think maybe not a threat on the win end. He doesn't win very often of late, but he's a horse I think who might potentially run second in there. But if you're playing the exactas, he's a horse you want to consider. I wouldn't use him, though. I'm not looking for a complete meltdown when we look at the pick 5 here. I would try to just get by with 1 or 2 of the speed horses. Jeff gives the lean to best actor in there. And of course, touch upon a star when I mentioned his owners is Set Hut Racing LLC. Set Hut sounds like a quarterback. It is Jake Delhomme, former Carolina Panthers quarterback, the owner there, and in the family also the trainer. So the Delhomme family well represented with that one. Touch upon a star. What a star guitar like Louisiana bred, if you remember him from back a few years ago with that kind of record. Let's go next on our handicapping journey to the second leg of this Bayou Bluegrass pick 5. It's Turfway Park's Bourbonnette Oaks. This is the 3-year-old fillies en route potentially to the Kentucky Oaks here. The sister race on the undercard for the Jeff Ruby. The Bourbonnette Oaks will be at 1 mile and a 16th on the main track there at Turfway Park. Of course, only one track. It's the Topita. And Jeff Siegel in this race for 3-year-old fillies at 1 mile and a 16th. How do you see it shaking out?
When I first handicapped this race, I said, okay, I'm going to pick Pink Polka Dots. I liked her when she got entered in the grass race March 9th, and I think that when you look at her form, you say, okay, that's fine. Now she's going to run on the dirt, and she's one of these. She's not waiting around for anybody. She's going to go. And because of that, I thought she'd have a chance. But she's a little question mark on dirt, and so I thought 6-1. I'm definitely going to use her. But then you got Winnable. I went and checked her debut race. I'm not really thinking that I was going to pick her. There was a discrepancy, not a discrepancy, but a gap between her buyer number of 65 and the 81 that Pink Polka Dots had earned in her last win. So I thought that might be a little bit too much to overcome. But then I went and watched the video of Winnable, a daughter of Justify, who won her debut at Turfway, which is good because we know she likes this track. And I thought she looked fantastic. And I'm going to bite the bullet against the buyer number and say, not only do I think maybe she's better than the 65 that she earned, but I think she's the kind of filly that's really way better than that one race would show. And I think she's stepped forward to me in a massive way for Kenny McPeak. I like Winnable here. She's 10-1 in the winning line. I like the 2-hole. I like the fact that she won her race stalking, sitting in the second flight, which is the kind of trip she's going to get. This could be a star in the making here for Winnable. And as a gamble at 10-1, that's where I'm going with. I will have tickets backing up with Pink Polka Dots because I don't know how good she is. 2 for 2, runaway wins. But man, Winnable to me is a good thing.
She's by Justify out of a curling mare. We didn't need to go any farther than that for land on her. But you liked what you saw on video, and I think that's an important factor, not only with this filly, but one we're going to talk about a little bit later on the program. Let's give the fans a chance to see that race. It made a little history for trainer Kenny McPeak.
Off the turn with the lead. Pink Moon fights on. Back in third is Stakeout. Moonlight Gambler's trying to take off. Here comes Moonlight Gambler. Winnable's the leader past the 8th pole. Moonlight Gambler's closing. Winnable has the lead. Moonlight Gambler is second. It's Winnable with the lead. 2,000 career trading victories for Kenny McPeak. Winnable gets it done stylishly from Moonlight Gambler, Guinevere, Spellcheck, and My Sexy Blonde.
So Winnable, potential 2 deep in the pick 5 here with Pink Polka Dots. Jeff, would you use them both?
I would. The main push though at the price would be Winnable, but I'm not going to let Pink Polka Dots get loose in the lead and not have a ticket on her. Because here's the thing about her. I mean, again, both her wins were on grass. Now she's on all weather. It's not grass, but it's not dirt either. So who's to say she won't like it? And if she can get loose in the lead, maybe she just outruns everybody. I can see that scenario. But I could also see Winnable sit second, maybe even a distant second, and then have her dead aim from the quarter pole home. And she was just under wraps there in the final furlong. I don't know how good Winnable is, but I suspect she is. And I wish I had known that before the race when she was 14-1.
Yes.
So maybe they hadn't really cranked her up, but that's a good filly.
And when a trainer does something a little out of character, that's usually a sign that the horse is doing it. And that's a good sign because Kenny McPeak not one to have first-time starters just completely cranked up like that. So she won for a barn that's not asking them for everything in their career debut, and she ran that well. Third race of the pick 5 that we're looking at on Saturday for the Bayou Bluegrass Series. We'll go to the fairgrounds for the Fairgrounds Oaks. Race number 11 on the card. Grade 2 here, worth a purse of $400,000 and some name fillies in here. Once upon a time, folks thought Vivi's Dream might be the star of this 3-year-old filly division. She hasn't really panned out so far as a sophomore, but Tarifa and Intricate are back off of a really good performance in the Rachel Alexandra where they ran 1-2. We don't get to see the Risen Star winner, Sierra Leone, back in the Louisiana Derby. A little disappointed for the local fans in that respect, but when they get a rematch like this amongst the Oaks fillies, Tarifa and Intricate, Jeff, this is as good as it gets in that part of the country right now, and it might be as good as it gets anywhere leading towards the Kentucky Oaks. These are two very, very legitimate sophomore fillies.
They really are, and I gave Tarifa the edge here, but Intricate was coming off a layoff when they faced each other in the Rachel Alexandra. Again, the wet track kind of throws a monkey wrench into it. Intricate's a gun runner filly. Her win in the Golden Rod was very impressive. She broke her maiden at Keeneland before that. She's an exceptionally good filly, and I think Tarifa might be as well. You remember her race at Keeneland when she won first time out, won by 6. Buffalo form in her next start on a 1-turn mile, but since then, won an allowance race, came back and won the Rachel Alexandra, daughter of Bernardini. There aren't that many Bernardinis left there. There won't be. Good to see that he's still got one really terrific filly in his, among his offspring. And it's a rematch on fast ground this time. I just went with Tarifa, but again, in another situation where you're playing a rolling exotic, there's no way I'm having a ticket that's not using Intricate on it somewhere.
Interesting thing about these two is they rematch. You say, why would it be any different? You talked about the form cycle, right? It was a layoff situation for Intricate. First start since November. Tarifa had been in her form cycle. I like to look in this situation when horses come back. They're coming off the obviously same layoff because they come out of the same race. What's happened since then? I find it interesting that it was March 3rd when Tarifa returned to the workout tab and has had 3 works. Intricate was back on the workout tab February 29th, 4 days quicker back to the work tab, and has 4 workouts to the 3. So going into the race, Tarifa probably didn't need as much. She was in her form cycle. Intricate probably needed the race and now has had more work since. She might be able to close that gap. I think we're going to see a closer margin. It could run 1-2 once again, but I don't think she's getting beat by 2 3/4 lengths this time. I think Intricate will be better this time, and Tarifa may be as well. But I think these two are going to be really matched up evenly in here. Let's give the fans a chance to go back and look at their last matchup, and then we'll put a bow on the Fairgrounds Oaks.
As Alpine Princess is on even terms coming toward the quarter pole, Vivi's Dream and Tarifa. Intricate is now running second to last, and Pennick has dropped back to last as these 3-year-old fillies turn for home here on a sloppy track at the fairgrounds after 3 quarters in 1 minute 13.15 seconds. Alpine Princess, Tarifa charging hard on the outside. Perfect shot, and Intricate is also mounting a late bid. Then Vivi's Dream. Pennick is the distant. It's Tarifa who's taken the lead here for Flavian Pratt. Intricate is now second. Perfect shot third. Alpine Princess drop back. Tarifa in the Rachel Alexandra Stakes. Tarifa finishes on top by 3 from Intricate.
As you can see, it's going to take some developmental change and swing in the momentum to make up that margin, because no doubt the winner was best that day and drawing off a little bit on the end. Jeff, 2 deep situation, or are you singling in here when we look at a pick 5?
Well, I definitely going to use them both somewhere. I prefer Tarifa. The Bernardinis are supposed to get better with age. But the one thing about both these fillies, if you look at their pattern, is that they both get faster with every race. Tarifa's gone from 70 to 86 to 90 on the buyers, and she's not done improving. Intricate has gone from 59 to 72 to 85 to 87. She keeps getting better and better. You expect that the Bernardinis will get better. Gun Runner the same. And then again, on fast ground, it might be a different situation. So I could see either one of them win, but boy, the way Tarifa was striding out there, maybe it was the off track, but she's done some good work on the fast as well. So just a really good race by 2 exceptionally good fillies.
Our Pretty Woman's undefeated for Steve Asmussen could be the fly in the ointment to the big favorites. But for me, in an exactathon situation, I think this is one you just box the two favorites and try to get through and check off the box of getting one of those 6 exactas that you need in order to go for the bonus money. It's not a great intra-race bet to box those two in an exacta, but I think from a contest standpoint, that could be the way to attack and approach that. Time now on the It's Official podcast to look at our 2 back-to-back Kentucky Derby preps, 100-point preps coming up this weekend. We'll start off with the Jeff Ruby Stakes at Turfway Park. The Jeff Ruby, a race that's had many names over the years, and coming up on Saturday, it'll be renewed here, I believe, for the 3rd time as the Jeff Ruby. And the Jeff Ruby Stakes has a field of 14 with a couple also eligibles. Some news about the horses in this race. Agate Road the 5 will end up scratching here to run in the Louisiana Derby at Fairgrounds. Circle P is expected to run in Maryland in the private term stakes. That should bring Triple Espresso into the field for trainer Todd Pletcher. Will have the outside post position in here. So 12 expected to go before we get the final scratches on race day morning. Lucky Jeremy, my favorite named 3-year-old NOLA horse racing in here, Jeff. We're certainly rooting for him. He'll be part of what looks to be a pretty good pace. And I hate to use the word cheap speed talking about horses running in a race worth this kind of money, $700,000. But some of the horses that may not have the class on their resume look like the horses who are going to go early. That could set up well for the classy closers.
Yeah, this is a really good race. Sometimes, you look at this race and you figure, well, there are no Derby horses in here. But, man, I'm telling you, there's some nice prospects here, and they're running – most of them are running either because they are grass horses, and this is the closest thing they're going to get to grass with regards to a prep race. And then you've got the distance. Some of these horses have been begging for a mile and 1/8. And then you've got horses like Endlessly, my top selection, who probably – will not have a chance to run on actual dirt for a while. He's done all of his good work prior to his last race on grass and did very well. Won 2 graded stakes on turf in California back in October. You might think, well, maybe he was just an early developer, wasn't embarrassed in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf, and then came out and won the El Camino Real Derby, which not only was a good race, but qualifies him for the Preakness. But this is the logical spot. I've been very impressed with the way Michael McCarthy has managed his horses. He doesn't do anything crazy. He just takes what is given to him. And rather than getting high on Endlessly, let's just keep him on the all-weather, come back and do what we did at Golden Gate. And that was a very strong race. I'm telling you, Endlessly won the race. He was 3-5. But Tapalo and Guy Named Joe, they're not empty stalls. Those colts can run. And I love the way Endlessly won that race from off the pace. And I think he's got a chance to come right back and do it again in Kentucky.
Let's go to Bill Down's call at Golden Gate Fields for the El Camino Real.
Has a lead by about 3 lengths. Endlessly, the chalk comes on the outside, and Endlessly has a 1/16 of a mile to make up 2 lengths. And it's Tapalo with the lead close to home, but it's Endlessly. Endlessly, the favorite, sweeps on by for the win. Tapalo second, Guy Named Joe third, Old Triangle fourth.
Endlessly the favorite in the Jeff Ruby. I think a horse has got a chance at a price in here is Northern Flame, 3rd in the Rebel Stakes behind the much respected Timberlake, the Brad Cox trainee. It was a grade 1 winner at 2 and has come back to run well in his 1 start so far at 3. He's by Flame Away. He's got a little synthetic pedigree there. The Flame Aways have done okay at Turfway. And the form seems to be improving for this one. And trainer Kenny McPeak's 3-year-olds all seem to hit the board. They have been playing in all of these races, no matter the locale. I think he's bringing this one to Turfway with the shot. I'm surprised to see Julian Leparoux, for as dominant as he was at Keeneland in the Polytrack era and riding the synthetics in Kentucky, has never won this race, the signature race at Turfway Park. I think he's got a real shot in here. Northern Flame under Leparoux, I think, is one to keep consideration here. And if he runs well, that will certainly bode well for the people who have, good tidings to Timberlake as he preps towards the Arkansas Derby. So if you're following the trail from the big picture in here, and you're a Timberlake fan, you certainly want to see Northern Flame, Woodcourt, horses coming out of the Rebel run well. But with the surface change, it's not apples to apples. So if you're a fan of Timberlake and these horses don't take to the synthetic is not necessarily an indictment on him, but if they do run well here, it looks good for Timberlake. I'm going to give Northern Flame a shot in here, Jeff. Otello coming from Florida, a Curlin who, we don't know if this one's going to handle the synthetic, but it's got the right running style, coming from a bit off the pace. Clement Castellano teaming up here. I think Otello's got a shot in this particular spot. And then, of course, the favorite Endlessly. I think it comes down to those three. If I'm playing that Bayou Bluegrass pick 5, I want to use those 3 runners in here and see if I can get by with that trio.
You bring up a good point, because a lot of people look at these races and want to use them as kind of evaluation type of races where, okay, he comes out of, like, for example, you mentioned Otello coming out of the Holy Bull. We want to learn as much as we can about the Holy Bull, and then we want to see how Otello runs. I mean, if he runs badly, it's not necessarily a knock. But if he runs well, it's certainly a positive. And you get horses coming into the races. That's one of the reasons why, one of the tools I'm using with Endlessly, because if you run at Golden Gate on an all-weather racetrack up there, you don't really know who you're running with. But I'm telling you, my experience and my evaluation of the runner-up and the third-place finisher in that race, that was a much stronger race than you're normally going to get from a race like that, which in the past has produced a Preakness winner. So I think Endless. And the other thing I want to point out about the Endlessly's race, a point that I forgot to make, is when you have an all-weather track like that, the horses, because there's no kickback, they tend to finish closer together, more of a bunch. In that race at Golden Gate, they were spread out from there to the Golden Gate Bridge itself, which means they ran. Those first 2-3 horses really ran in that race. And it looked like an end of a dirt race. So I think Endlessly to me is a gamble at 5-2. And I'm not saying he's necessarily a single. I think the horses you mentioned, Jeremy, are horses you certainly should have on your ticket somewhere. But for me, the gamble is going to be Endlessly.
Jeff Ruby has produced the Kentucky Derby winner and the runner-up the past 2 years. Last year, it was Two Phils running second out of this race in the Kentucky Derby. 2 years ago, it was Rich Strike. We're still trying to figure out how he did it, but he did it 2 years ago, also coming from the Turfway path. So a race that you certainly want to consider. And from a gambling standpoint, too, throw the field back up here one quick second. Don't sleep on the outside runner in here, that being Triple Espresso. 20-1 in the morning line, because also eligibles tend to be a better price than they ought to be. People don't do the due diligence of keeping up with the scratches and changes a lot of times, and you'll get an overlay price. Todd Pletcher's won this race several times. Do not be surprised if Triple Espresso is not a factor in here, even from an outside draw. My Own and 8th at Turfway will have a decent run into the clubhouse turn there to try to find some position, but Triple Espresso may be a 4th horse to consider in there, but I'm definitely using 3 when we talk about the pick 5. We teased you with the field for the Louisiana Derby. Let's go to that next, and this will be the final leg of that Bayou Bluegrass pick 5. Louisiana Derby goes as race number 12 on Saturday from the Fairgrounds, mile and 3/16. One horse who's been very familiar with the Fairgrounds series this year is Track Phantom. He's running all 4 legs now if he goes on Saturday. He won the Gun Runner. He won the LeCompte. He ran a good second in the Risen Star. We'll see if Steve Asmussen has this one still rocking and rolling at his best. He's going to have to overcome an outside post in here, Jeff, of post 12. But he's got a good running style. He's a horse who can make the front, doesn't have to make the front, but he gets that first over trip, if not on the lead, and that's very effective. He takes a lot of the variables out of the question, and they'll have a long run into the turn here at a mile and 3/16.
And I'm not finding a lot of speed in this race, Jeremy. I mean, Track Phantom, I actually like that outside draw for him. First of all, this is a mile and 3/16. He'll have forever to get over and long enough to choose his tactics, choose his spot. Being outside, Joel can kind of look over to his left, see if anybody's going. If nobody's going, then he can go. If someone is committed to going, and I don't see who that might be. If you can point out another speed here, I'm all ears.
I think Antiquaria is going to try to go towards the inside because Todd's got multiples in here. He's got an inside draw, and they went to the front last year with King's Barnes with a horse who kind of looked very similar to this on paper. You didn't think he was that fast, but they had intent and just went and wired the field. So I think Antiquarian would be the only other horse in this race that's going to have any intent on the lead. So Track Phantom's either on the lead or sitting first over. It's going to be a good trip for him.
It is. And Antiquarian, I mean, I watched him train before he ever ran, and I thought he could run, and Conquest Warrior beat him. Had a good gamble at Antiquarian I had that day at 4-1, and I didn't know who Conquest Warrior was. I soon found out. So that was actually a good race. Comes back and wins again. I think he was 5-2 the second race. I'm not sure why he didn't get bet more than that. But he really, I mean, you're right about the tactics. If I'm Todd, I'm saying to Johnny V, let's maybe let him run out of there and get some good position. But he's not really that quick. I mean, the first race on a one-turn mile, 46 4.5 is not fast. And then, of course, in his next start, they went 49. So if that's who Track Phantom has to worry about with regards to pace pressure, I like Track Phantom a lot. And I thought Track Phantom ran really well in the Risen Star. Now, you might say, okay, well, he made the lead, so he's supposed to run well. Yeah, he did. But again, I thought he kind of got a little surprised by Sierra Leone in the final furlong. And I thought he held on really, really well. The only consideration I have for this is that he's been tested quite a few times, but man, I'm telling you, I think he's a better horse than I have given him credit for. And under these circumstances, if he's got another good one left in him, which I don't see why he wouldn't, I think Phantom controls this race on the lead or from a stalking position. I think he's going to win it. I think he's going to beat this field, and I like him. He's what is he, 3-1 on the morning line? Let's see. Yeah. I can live with that.
And I think that's about what he'll be. I think that's a pretty fair estimation in here. I don't think you're going to see a heavy 7-5, 8-5 kind of favorite in this kind of race. Yeah. And if you're worried about him being worn down, being the fourth race of the series, I know every horse is an individual, but Steve Asmussen kind of went down this road with Epicenter. He did it with Midnight Bourbon, and those horses ran strong through the Triple Crown even after really waxing it throughout the course of this Fairground series, and they ran well in those races and continued to run well through the Triple Crown. So I wouldn't be surprised. Steve knows his horses and which ones can take the rigor and which ones can't. This horse has obviously thrived on it, and we'll see how it works out on Saturday. A couple other horses in here. Catching Freedom, the 5, was the third place finisher in the Risen Star. I think certainly a contender. And the 11, Tuscan Gold. This is a horse I was really high on off his debut 4th. He ran against his stablemate Sierra Leone in a race where he just had worlds of trouble in the debut last year at Aqueduct. His comeback race at Gulfstream was very good, going 2 turns, drawing off, beating the son of Arrogate, or the brother to Arrogate, who was the runner-up in there, who was favored for Todd Pletcher, and he beat him easily by 6 lengths. I think he's got some quality about him in Tuscan Gold. He's got a tough outside post position as well. But if this race runs back through the Risen Star, the top 2 contenders in here, obviously, again, are Asmussen and Cox, with the horses who ran 2-3 in that one. Let's go back to John Dooley's call of the Risen Star Stakes.
Brilliance. Toward the outside is Cardinal Awesome Ruta. Chasing Freedom is 4 wide. B Dancer, Real Men, Violin toward the inside as they turn for home after 3 quarters in 1 minute 14.74 seconds. Track Phantom charging on the outside is Resilience. Hall of Fame flattens out. Chasing Freedom trying to keep a straight path, and Sierra Leone charging hard on the outside. It's Track Phantom, Resilience, Chasing Freedom in tight quarters between horses. Sierra Leone on the outside for Tyler Gaffalione. Sierra Leone, Track Phantom down.
Big race there from the winner, big race from the runner-up, and several in that race. It looks like one of the best preps we've seen this season on the Triple Crown Trail. We'll see how it shakes out, what it might mean for Sierra Leone when we see him in a couple weeks at Keeneland in the Bluegrass Stakes as we're trying to evaluate these 3-year-olds. Okay, that's a look at the 5 races for that Bayou Bluegrass Stake 5. We still got 3 races to handicap here on the podcast. We're going to go to Laurel Park, Oaklawn, and Santa Anita to wrap things up. At Laurel Park, it's the private term stakes, $100,000, mile and a 16th. This will be the first 2-turn race in Maryland this year for horses locally based who might be headed towards the Preakness. They'll still have the Federico Tessio Stakes coming up in about 4 weeks' time, and then on potentially to Pimlico. We saw Coffee with Chris come out of this race last year, end up in the Preakness field, so certainly can happen. Again, they've been running 1-turn miles with that extended run to the long finish line, the second finish line at Laurel to this point. Now they use the proper finish line, 16th of a mile shorter, and a mile and a 16th with a short run into the first turn. So you want to have a little more speed in this particular kind of configuration, I think. And Jeff, as we look down at the field for the private term stakes, you've got 5 of them Triple Crown nominees in this particular spot. Copper Tax, Speed Runner, and Vagald. Starts with a Dream and Circle P. You've got a horse, though, coming off a maiden win last time that you want to alert the fans about.
Yeah, his name is, now should I call him Celtic Contender? Or
that's what Dave Rodman says, and I never question Dave Rodman.
I suppose that's probably correct, but I remember the Lakers playing the Celtics, so I'm not sure if this isn't Celtic Contender. Either way, he's number 6 on the program. And after finishing a promising third sprinting and a slop first time out, kind of gave him a little bit of a run in that race, stretched out to a 1-turn mile. And one thing about this race is that I looked about him. I wanted to see some progress. I wanted to see him step forward. I always say the second race is a lot more important than the first one with maidens or with 3-year-olds, because they can do anything in the first start. They don't know what they're doing,
Right.
They're supposed to improve. Well, I was looking for that with Celtic Contender, and he really did. Not only did he show excellent speed to be on the pace and did it under a nice hold that he could have gone faster, but when they asked him to quicken from the top of the stretch to that long run into the wire, he did it the right way. He's a good mover, good-looking chestnut colt, grandson of Curlin, and he now stretches out to 2 turns, which I think will be in his range. I also think that he'll be on or near the lead. He showed speed around 1 turn. He should do a 2-turning as well. And he's 6-1 on the morning line, and he's going from maiden to stake, but man, on numbers, he's already right there with the potential of being faster as he gets more experience. I like Celtic Contender here as a gamble, and I certainly liked his first his win that took place here at Laurel not too long ago.
Put your eyes on this one. It was a good-looking one at Laurel. Here's Dave Rodman, the aforementioned.
Celtic Contender takes over. Celtic Contender turns for home with a 1/4 mile left to go to the second wire. Come rain or shine out after that one, and Brady Bear's off the inside now, still driven. The inside is Davy Jones in 4th, furlong and a half left to go, and it's Celtic Contender and Jevion Toledo. They're ridden out and rolling home by 6. Celtic Contender pouring it on. Now 7 in front. Scramble for second. Here's Davy Jones up the rail, then Brady Bear, followed by Come Rain or Shine. Celtic Contender, a sharp looking win. Celtic Contender from Davy Jones and Brady Bear, Come Rain or Shine.
I liked how the probability win meter there with the races in Maryland went from 70% to 98% in about 3 jumps. He really did kick it in clear at the top of the stretch, and he's going to be a factor in this spot. Inveigled, the horse coming out of the Mucho Macho Man and the Holy Bulls, got a little class edge in here. It also has a little pace about him for Jane Sabelli. I would assume Inveigled's going to be one of the horses who's a major contender in this particular spot. And then Speediness, the local who won the Miracle Wood Stakes. He's front-running speed in here. He hasn't gone 2 turns yet, couple 1-turn trio of 1-turn miles on his resume. Certainly wasn't losing any ground or momentum in some of his wins. I'm not so sure with the pedigree where he stands, because he's by Great Notion, who usually gets more shorter horses, but he's got to include on the dam side, and that's all stamina. So maybe Speediness handles the stretch out for trainer Jamie Nesson here. He's certainly in raging good form.
He is. I mean, this is a good contentious race. You mentioned Inveigled. Again, we want to go to school here a little bit, because he comes out of that Holy Bull race. He was 4th, beaten 6 lengths. And I mean, okay, so he wasn't quite up to that group, but that's a good group, or at least it's supposed to be. Hades and Domestic Product and a horse named Fierceness. So, you know, I mean, he's supposed to drop down to this level, a stakes that's not a graded stakes, just a listed stakes.
Right.
And be able to take that form and apply it nicely here. And I suspect he's going to run well. But there are others in here that have a chance really to say, hey, wait a minute. No, we're not too bad ourselves.
Right.
Very, very interesting race here. Maybe not for Derby horses, but for horses that could run in secondary races for good 3-year-olds, like Peter Pan type races, where they're not quite classics, but they're still very good races. And I'm interested to see, for one, if Celtic Contender is up to this level in just his 3rd career start.
He is the race name, the Private Terms, named for the 1988 Wood Memorial winner for Charlie Hadry. Came out of Maryland, went up to New York, went on to Kentucky. I believe was favored at post time over Winning Colors in the Derby that year. Private Terms. Remember watching him from the bowling alley when I was a kid. Wide World of Sports in the preps. I watched his Wood Memorial from the bowling alley. One of those "where were you when" moments. I don't know why I remember seeing Private Terms, but he was a good one back in the day for a Maryland-based trainer, Charlie Hadry. Let's go to Oaklawn next, as our continuing handicapping around the country moves to the Midwest of the country, the Essex $600,000 Grade 3 race here. This is a prep towards the Oaklawn Handicap coming up in about a month's time. 1 1/8, same distance that we'll see in the Oaklawn Handicap. And these are a lot of the same horses that we saw in the Razorback. Some of them coming back in this particular spot. Magic Tap, the runner runner-up in that one. Octane's not back out of the Razorback Stakes. And then First Mission drops in class out of the Pegasus World Cup. Jeff, he didn't fire at all in that spot. I thought First Mission was going to run a good race in there coming out of the Clark, his first start of the year, and he just did not get involved at all. What can we make of First Mission trying to bounce back?
I don't know. I mean, I didn't like him in that race as much as you did, but I thought he'd be at least competitive. I thought he could hit the board, and he didn't do that.
I wish you would have told me that with more enthusiasm before.
Well, I thought it wasn't completely so that I was right either. I didn't know what to make of him, but
you could have saved me.
Yeah, well, I wasn't right in myself. Now I assume he's okay. Brad brings him back. He'd run well in the Clark, and I don't know. The form of that race is pretty good. Let's face it. So This is a considerably softer spot for sure. Again, I don't have any issue with the outside post going a mile length at Oaklawn. He's not a horse that necessarily has to go to the front. In fact, he probably prefers to sit exactly where he's going to be in this race. Outside, right behind the leaders, move when you want to move, not when someone makes you move. And I think First Mission's got a real good chance to bounce back. Triple-digit buyer number 2 races back, and that race, if repeated in the Clark, probably would be good enough to win. I'm going for a bit of a price here. Again, horses that I would use in a rolling exotic situation, playing pick 3s, pick 4s, whatever. First Mission would certainly be on the ticket because I know on his best day he's good enough to win. But a price horse for me is Wizard of Westwood, not because it's March Madness. I have nothing against those kinds of plays where you're using a horse because of whatever the horse's name is. It has nothing to do with the horse. He doesn't know what his name is. But I don't necessarily dismiss it either, what a factor. But the one thing that caught my eye in Wizard of Westwood, even though he's never quite beaten these kinds of horses, is that he might be better on dirt than he is on grass, and he's been mostly a grasser or a synthetic horse. The first time he ever ran was out here in California, and he had a dead heat win. I thought that was pretty good. And then in an off-the-turf race at Churchill 2 races back, he just crushed. And again, it's one of these situations where maybe Michael wasn't sure or didn't think or didn't know whether he was that good on dirt, but he said, well, whatever. I mean, I'll leave him in, and the horse just ran off. And maybe he's thinking, something? He's dirt horse. Let's keep him on dirt from right now. I love where he's drawn. I love his style. He's run well on the lead, doesn't need the lead to win, can stalk, pounce, and go. And I think he's going to get a great trip, and I think he's going to be a decent price. And while he did not run well at Turfway in his last start as the favorite, I'm just going to think that maybe back on dirt, he's going to rebound. Has a bullet work on the training center at Churchill down since then. I know he's doing well. He's got a little bit of time off now, lightly raced, room for improvement. So I'm going to try him as a gamble at 8-1, number 3, Wizard of Westwood, in a race in which I'm convinced that if First Mission decides to show up and run, he'll probably win.
Ferran Giroux in town to ride for Brad Cox on First Mission. Interesting. He's also riding Nash for him in the Hot Spring Stakes. Talented but disappointed 3-year-old in his past couple starts. See if he can't get back on the beam on the undercard here on Saturday at Oaklawn. But for Giroux not to be riding Louisiana Derby Day at Fairgrounds, pretty significant. I know this is a $600,000 race. The other one's a $200,000 race, but there's a lot of money on the line, including $1 million race, Fairgrounds, and a big undercard in support. So I think they think this horse is doing well right now. That because Saez was the regular rider for First Mission, so this isn't a Florent Giroux mount all the time. He's coming to ride this horse off the bullet workout, so maybe they've got him good again. Because like you said, the good version of First Mission is pretty darn good. Let's see. It's going to be an interesting edition of the Essex. Let's go to Santa Anita for race number 7 on Saturday. The feature race on the weekend at the Great Race Place will be the San Luis Rey, and the San Luis Rey on the turf here. We go to our final handicapping destination of the weekend, 1.5 miles on the grass, turf marathoners. Jeff, who do you like in your backyard?
I pick Planetario, but we saw this in the San Marcos. It's the same horse, the same run. There isn't an edge here. This used to be a really high-quality race. but the grass horses that we have kind of dissipated. I just think, he got beat last time out, but he's won over the course here in a race that I'll watch. It's a local race, but I don't know if there's really much of a gamble here. Again, it looks like a repeat of the last race we saw with this group, and so we'll watch them again.
Mr. Cut got the win that day in the San Marcos. Planetario was rallying for second. Let's go and take a look back at that with Frank Miramati.
Short man and Planetario, a quarter of a mile to go. It's Balladeer. Irish Prophet comes to him. Missed the cut, traveling beautifully along the rail. Needs racing room. He's trying to get through the narrowest of openings, and he gets through. Missed the cut, scrapes that rail, and on the outside, Planetario, but it's missed the cut, and Joel Rosario spurting clear at the 16th pole. Planetario's trying to get to him late. Missed the cut, missed the cut. Rosario put on a clinic, wins by a length and a half. Planetario was second. It's a long way back. Four of them across the course, battling it out for third.
That's a look at the San Luis Rey feature race Saturday at Santa Anita. So our 8 races are in the books for handicapping. I want to remind you, we've got a coast-to-coast pick 5 where you get 10 times wager rewards points when you bet the coast-to-coast pick 5 Saturday or Sunday or both. When you bet with First Bet and Express Bet, that $25,000 exactathon challenges you to handicap and hit 6 races where you click on the exacta. You got to hit the exacta in 6 of the 12 races on Saturday at Fairgrounds. Make your share of $20,000 in doing so. And we also want to direct you to our websites, First Bet and Express Bet, to check out the blog of John White, our senior handicapper there. John's got his Triple Crown picks this weekend for the Jeff Ruby and the Louisiana Derby. An update on his Kentucky Derby top 10 list as well. So a lot cooking, a lot of good stuff this weekend. And that new wager, the Bayou Bluegrass pick 5, again, 15% takeout on that one, $1 minimum for the Bayou Bluegrass pick 5. You can bet that through First Bet and Express Bet as well. Jeff, this is going to be a fun weekend. Not only the 3-year-old races we're talking about, but the handicap division with the New Orleans handicap. You got a big undercard. Kentucky Oaks with a couple big preps, the Bourbonnette and also the Fairgrounds Oaks. A lot of divisions in play this weekend. It should be a good one.
It really should. In fact, in looking at this list of races that we're handicapping, other than maybe the San Luis Rey, Mr. Cut, Planetario going at each other again, Mr. Cut got through, Planetario came to the outside. I don't know how they're going to fit up again. But other than that race, every race that we did today, the first 7 are good handicapping exercises with chances for decent prices and chances to look at the videos and try to envision who you think is going to improve enough to step up. With me, it's Winnable and Endlessly and Celtic Contender. Those kind of horses are horses that I'm looking forward to wagering on because I don't think they're going to be 6-5 or anything like that. Right. So, and they're important races too. They're stepping stones to bigger and better things. So we got a really good series of races here to watch and wager on. And sometimes it gets a little dry. Sometimes there's not a whole lot to work with. But this week is full of some good gambling opportunities. I'm looking forward to it, and I'll have that TV on the races, that TV on the basketball. I'm going to be just nice and comfortable here in my den watching all the good action.
You mentioned dry. It won't be dry in New York. They've already canceled racing because of a deluge of rain expected at Aqueduct on Saturday. So no racing in New York. That's going to be good news for the business barometers, certainly in Kentucky and Louisiana and other venues around the track where some of that New York money is going to go on Saturday. But the big days at Fairgrounds and at Turfway certainly should be big benefactors of no racing in New York on Saturday. So we will be back on Tuesday to wrap up a huge weekend of racing on our It's Official podcast. Jeff and I will take a look at 5 hot topics in racing in that one. But between now and then, enjoy the hoops, enjoy the racing. Have a great weekend, everybody, and we will talk to you on Tuesday.